Awesome. Hey everyone, Mike Bartell again with Free International, coming to you from Las Vegas. This is our episode number 2 of You Need to Know. And you might be going, hey, I didn't know there was an episode 1. But we're starting to feed out. We want to feed out to you some of our greatest partners. As you know, Free International at its core is highly collaborative. We have partners all over the country that we work arm in arm with beyond just referrals. And there's so many great people doing so many amazing things out there that we want to expose you to the people we know if you don't know them already. And today, my friend Paul Hurkman is joining us from Minneapolis. I believe you're in Minneapolis right now, Paul?
That's right. Right up here in the Twin Cities.
Awesome. Yeah, well, the winter's coming there, which, you know, here in Las Vegas, we love winter because it's, you know, like the North, summer and fall. Right. So summer here is brutal. It's like winter in Minneapolis. You never leave your house, you know, you just kind of hunker down. But when you and I first met, you were in Minneapolis, you were in Dallas. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing in Dallas.
Yeah, talk about weather and winter, right? When we met in Dallas, it was the ice storm, basically. I was working at a local church down there and doing some work with the Super Bowl and wanting to get involved and involve our church with some of the anti-trafficking awareness pieces surrounding the Super Bowl. And there was this expert who happened to be a really, really nice guy named Mike. And we became friends for close to, man, has it been a decade already?
Yeah, more. I think it's right at, I think that was, it has been 10 years. Yeah. So it was 2011, I think that Dallas Super Bowl was.
That's right.
And man, that was crazy. I remember we were there and everything shut down in Dallas. The only place we could eat for a couple of days was the Waffle House, right? That was literally the only place open. McDonald's and, you know, even the Walmart's all shut down, but boy, the trusty Waffle House is always open for business, isn't it?
That's right. Absolutely. They're the post office of restaurants.
Perfect. And man, if you eat one meal, you're set for like 3 days there too. So, I mean, you only have to eat once and you're good to go.
Or you're going to live in regret for 3 days.
Both and, right? You're sustained, but regretting it. Yeah, I get it. Love you, Waffle House. We do a lot of work on your doorstep there.
Absolutely.
So, you know, from Dallas, you took a position up in Minneapolis with Venture, who I want to expose everyone in the Free Nation, all our friends of Free out there, to what you're doing with Venture. Just spectacular organization, doing amazing work. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Venture, how you got connected, and what you guys have been able to accomplish so far?
Yeah, so Venture, we're passionate about bringing justice to the unreached. And specifically, we target parts of the world where there is less than 2% gospel witness. We're a faith-based organization. So that means parts of the world where out of every 100 people, less than 2 people have even heard the name of Jesus. And then we partner with local Christ-following leaders to address 4 issues. We address human trafficking, refugee crisis, extreme poverty, and then persecution, either because of the group that they were born into or because of their belief. And we're specific about talking about partnering with local leaders because God's doing great things in these places already, and we get to come alongside of them. And these 4 areas are pretty extreme. And so within Southeast Asia, we're specifically in about 10 different countries. I can mention a couple, not all of them, but Myanmar and Thailand, Nepal, Laos, Cambodia are some of them, some that we talk about, some that we don't, but we work alongside. And last year, we provided 8 million meals, refugee meals, as we come alongside of refugee situations. Awesome. We rescued 728 girls and a few boys as well, both rescue and interception before they were sold. Then we offer education. We also work in long-term sustainable situations, funded over 800 farmers. And then for us, again, as a faith-based organization, the thing that may be the most powerful is that we planted with our partners 181 churches last year. And I think what I would want someone to listen to church in the places where we're talking about is not really a building, and oftentimes there aren't paid pastors. And it's not just about where you go on a Sunday. Church is really introducing a radical new worldview that invites husbands not to beat their wives, and it invites parents to not sell their kids, and it invites neighbors to not steal and hit one another. Concepts that whether or not we actually do them, we all kind of agree in the spheres that we're in, but in the countries where we serve, these are not normal things that are talked about. And so to come alongside and work in those 4 specific areas is what we mean when we say bringing justice to the unreached.
No, that's incredible. And you know, I think a lot of that is where we're kindred. I mean, when we started Free, I know it came as a response to, as we traveled and spoke about the work that was going on, we were part of in Southern Asia. People were all, you know, we're hearing those stories and we're responding in incredible ways, but they would always end that sentence with what can we do, right? What can we put our hands to? And that's kind of always been how I've been tweaked. I know it's how you and your family are tweaked as well. But our focus then became, you know, the faith community, the churches in these parts of our own country here in the States that were planted in these really difficult situations, and spoke truth and love, and came alongside those families that needed to hear those things, but also provided a consistent support base of love and partnership there in the inner cities and different areas. Even though trafficking exists everywhere, that approach, I think, is just amazing. And you know, over the years, I know Venture has done incredible things. What is your main platform for helping fund some of those partnerships you have overseas? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so there are several ways, but I would say one of the most engaging ways. So we really try to call our community to 3 things: radical generosity. We're not interested in just a tip. I know that sounds crazy, but when you work in these difficult places, we call them the tough places. We want to call people to give sacrificially. So we talk about sacrificial generosity, fervent prayer, and then a unique thing that we do is actual physical sacrifice. So Venture started not as a Southeast Asia organization or even as an organization that addressed human trafficking and refugee crisis. It was a response. It was 3 college students that wanted to raise money for an impoverished community in South America, and they ended up riding their bikes across the country. They weren't cyclists, but they biked 3,300 miles. One of them sold their car to buy a bike just to go on this trip. But the ethos and the DNA is to interrupt our lives and to do something difficult on behalf of those other people that are living in difficult situations. And so now what started with one bike ride is we bike across countries, we run across states, we climb mountains. Most recently, pre-COVID, I got a chance to hike to Everest Base Camp in Nepal. And then we come alongside of churches and schools and individuals who have dreams about doing things with their legs, making their miles matter. So one of the overlapping initiatives that you and I have been a part of is 30 for Freedom. There was a guy named Brent, he's a hero, was about to turn 30 and decided he heard about human trafficking and said, you know what, I want to run 30 miles on my 30th birthday. I want to get 30 people to run 30 miles with me. And we're going to try to raise $30,000. Well, sometimes ideas are like catch lightning in a bottle. And it really took off. In the first year, they had 72. Some did 5Ks and some did 30 miles, but they raised over $70,000. 5 years later, Brent in this movement called 30 for Freedom has raised over $1 million to fight human trafficking, both domestic and international. Some of those things funding some of the great projects that you're a part of, and some funding the projects that Venture's doing in Southeast Asia.
That's amazing. I know a lot of people know the mobile work that we're doing, our mobile command centers. We just got a mobile medical unit 2 days ago and picking up another one this next Wednesday. 30 for Freedom's funded a couple of those units for us. And man, they've made just a huge impact everywhere we've been able to use them so that we can be present where the need is, right? That's being present is everything in reaching the vulnerable and even being in the middle of where justice is needed. And man, you've always been such a inspiration to me as someone, even on that fundraising side. Same with Brent, right? Just not only raising funds for what other people are doing, but kind of jumping right in, putting the mutters on and the work boots and just getting in there and working in the difficult areas, right? And I know one of the areas we overlap in a lot is with foster care and adoption. I know we work when we do our big searches, which is where you and I met, right? The Super Bowl, around a big search. Most of those kids that we're working with, the social workers and the law enforcement, to identify as our kind of our go-to list of here are the ones that really need to be found in our city. For choosing a top 30 list, I would say 80 to 90% of those kids that we search for around a big search are tied to the system. They're floating from foster care family to foster care family, and it's that instability that really has caused the vulnerability for their exploitation. And you and the family recognize that, whether it's here or overseas. So one of the things I know I've been following you closely and praying big prayers for is your expanding family. You just added more to your family. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your family and the growth of it through adoption?
Yeah. I appreciate you asking about that. I think one of the things that's really important to me is that my faith informs a lot of the decisions that I make. Now, I don't expect that everybody listening has the same faith that I do, and that's okay, but it informs how we make decisions, both organizationally and personally. And so when we moved back from Minneapolis, from Dallas, we were doing, I think, incredible work with Venture, and a lot of people's lives were being changed. But one of the things that my wife and I would talk about is, who are we as people of faith when we're not being paid? Because you and I, we get paid to do this. We're lucky, right? I mean, I think it's incredibly blessed to be able to do it. And one of the answer was that there was a huge need in Minneapolis in the foster care situation. And in scripture, the word justice is mishpat, and it's not charity and it's not philanthropy, but it's actually seeing systems of problems and addressing systems of problems. And so my wife, who always seems to be early to hearing God's voice or direction that our family should go, said, I think we should jump into foster care. I had always thought you had to be called to it. You had to feel something deeply. And I didn't feel those things, and I wanted to be ready. But the other thing that I wanted to practice justice in front of my kids. So we have bigs and littles now. My bigs are now 16 and 12, but when we started this process, they were 10 and 6 years old. And we talked to them and said, what do you think about this? Well, if I speed up the journey, we started it about 7 years ago. About a year it took to do classes. At the year mark, we got licensed on a Wednesday, and on a Friday, they called and said they had a newborn, which I'd had 2 biological kids. It worked a lot faster that way. So we go to the NICU and we picked up baby girl, and we were championing her being back with her birth family when everything stabilized, but that didn't work out. And so we ended up adopting Nia. About 6 months later, they called and said that she had a baby sister, and we adopted her. And then most recently, we adopted their baby brother. So they're a biological set at 2 years old. He's been with us since birth, but now we have the littles are our adopted kiddos, and then our bigs are our biological kiddos. And our life is incredibly blessed and way better by taking that step, not because for me anyway that we felt called, but simply wanting to be obedient and say, what's the need in my city and how can I respond?
And those are amazing questions. When Denise and I first started way back 2003 with this full time, we hooked up with Project Rescue.
Absolutely.
And the founders of Project Rescue, David Grant, one of the founders. He for generations has told his story of standing in the offering plate when it went by. He had nothing to give but himself. He goes, I don't think I was ever called. I just volunteered, right? And I hear your story, and I think of how that really is how it works, right? I mean, there's so many areas of need. We could get into whole courses at colleges discussing calling, what it is, versus meeting a need, which is what churches and the faith community should be doing every day in the cities that they're in. And I'm just so proud of the work you guys are doing. Incredibly proud that we get to do it with you. Before I ask the final question here, which is just gonna, we're gonna kind of get a little self-serving here and talk about January and how you and I are working together. Venture and I, Free, are working together in January. But as a fellow Packer fan, what is it like living in Minneapolis, Minnesota?
Well, I will say the last 2 weeks have been okay. There's a lot of really sad people right now at the time of this recording. A very difficult loss for the Vikings. Tonight, the Packers play the Lions. But we had nothing to write home about last week. So we're all kind of in the same.
That is true.
We're all in the same boat. But I mean, I would be remiss to not say that when we first met, that Super Bowl was actually the Super Bowl the Packers beat the Steelers, and also your Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if you refer to them as yours, are doing pretty well at the beginning.
We do now. Yeah, we do now. Packers are still my team, but the home team's Las Vegas. They're looking pretty good so far this year.
That's right. They're looking real good.
Beat two good teams, so looking forward to seeing how this season goes. And last year, truth be known, I got to give a little confessional here. I'm not anyone who really ever asks for anything unless it pertains to reaching the people we're called to reach to. Nothing personally, but last year, our big stadium here in Las Vegas was built and it was supposed to get open, and then of course COVID made every home game empty seats, right? But I knew there had to be security there. We worked a lot with law enforcement, and I actually was trying to fish around to see if I could sneak into that first game somehow. Just let me come in and watch, a few sets of downs there and sneak out. I was trying to cash in some favors, and boy, it just didn't work. The law enforcement here was sticking by the book. So I didn't get in there, but I tried hard, even though I never push for that kind of stuff. So hopefully get a game this year sometime. But my last question to you, and we could talk all day. I always just love talking with you, and want people to be able, I'm going to say this again, but want people to connect with you guys at Venture. You're on all the social media, on your website as well. I don't know the accessibility of your own personal Facebook page, but if you're up to people connecting with you there, I want you to tell them how to do that, because I just think it's important that as we do this video, I want people to be exposed to people we see as legitimate and worth following and paying attention to, and your journey as a family, as well as what you're doing with Venture, is just so compelling, and we love working with you. But tell us a little bit about what you and I are both working on going into January here, and then we'll get you back to your day job.
Sounds good. Well, before I do that, I just want to return a little bit of the love and compliments that you've been giving, and I so appreciate that you've been in this game for a long time, because if we kind of peek under the blanket or underneath the hood, everybody, it seems like, cares about human trafficking right now. It's a trendy thing to talk about. And there are a lot of nonprofits that pop up, and this is no reflection on, we're in a season where you got to try stuff, and some nonprofits make it and some don't, but you've been in the game for over a decade with this. And I really appreciate the steadiness, because everybody celebrates when people are doing well, but I also know that there are lean years when you're first getting rolling. And I appreciate you being not just a voice on behalf of the marginalized in Las Vegas or whatever, but you're also inspiring a lot of young people to be engaged, like through 30 for Freedom. I appreciate Brent and Kirby in the Minnesota district allowing that. But so we're gonna
thank you.
work together on a miles challenge. And it's basically this, it's the run for one. And the idea is simply run at least a mile a day, run or walk, or you can crawl, whatever it's going to take, but log a mile a day for the month of January, which is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Sometimes people often ask me, well, why the miles? I don't really get why the miles. I'm going to really quickly, if someone's listening going, why the miles? We say 3 reasons. First of all, miles training and miles running, you have to interrupt your life. And if we're going to see significant systemic change, for these individual young women, but also systemic change, we've got to practice our lives being interrupted. And just like training for a marathon or a 5K, you've got to take your life before running and change it. And so 1 a day allows you to interrupt your life, and then you can be thinking about the plight of these young women. 2, we say a phrase, we have to move from comfortable to less comfortable. Once again, the people that have the ability to respond, to give some money, to care, to have this kind of space, you've got to be willing to become a little bit less comfortable so that other people can thrive. If we know that this has been a tough year and a tough 18 months for so many people, whether we're talking medically, whether we're talking vocationally, relationally, this has just been a hard time. But overall, most of us have fared well. And so to move from our comfort, that's why couch to 5K is so trendy, getting off that comfortable couch, getting off streaming, binge watching and doing something else. So interrupting our lives, moving from comfortable. And then finally, it's a great platform to talk about. People will go, why are you doing that? And that gives a great opportunity, not only to tell what you're doing, but to invite other people into it. And when you do a 30-day challenge and you are repetitive, whether it's through your social media channels or just by talking, you will grab people's interest, and hopefully you'll tug at their heartstrings, which will connect to their wallets, which ultimately will create long-term change.
That's amazing. That's going to go in the notes below this. Every one of those is, I have a friend, Brant Christopher, who recently wrote a book. He and another friend of his about change, and they came at change from 2 different areas. One, my buddy Brant's son came down with a rare cancer, which flipped their whole life. They didn't really have a choice. There was things that had to change just to, manage what they were doing with their son, who just recently passed away. And the other man was obese, overweight, was on America's Biggest Loser, I think the name of the show is. I can't remember what it's called, but he had to willfully, understandably change his life, to get to a healthy spot. And so the whole book is about change, whether it comes, whether it's something you choose, which is exactly what you're talking about, or something like COVID, which is chosen for you. We kind of see what we're made of in this process of, going, where do our values lie? What are we really about? Are we willing to get less comfortable doing these things because it's important for us to reach the vulnerable and the exploited, or the one, as you said, we call January, the whole thing Free International is doing with you is called Run for One, which comes from really a quote, Jody Dice, who's part of our team. He runs one of our mobile units down the Gulf of Mexico area. He said, man, when I joined up with Free, I realized that 1 was a very big number, right? And we know that to be true. It's easy, just like you said, without being cynical about these organizations or anything else, we all say it's not about the numbers, but we also really want to make an impact, right? Show real impact. And sometimes we lose sight of the one, the one who has a story, who could be fixed if somebody was willing to adopt them, right? One who has a story being lost that could be found if we're willing to search for them, right? And hit it at a bigger level where, getting up an extra hour early a day and putting on a mile or 2 or 5 or 10 a day in the month of January to raise funds that 100% will go to find and restore the traffic. Those are big things, right? And we are proud to partner with you to maybe be the on-road for those who are listening to what you guys are doing, to reach the one. For us, we want you to jump in with our Run for One, Run or month of January. But as you heard, there's a lot of areas of vulnerability and exploitation that you can run for as well. If you go over to Venture's site, there's a lot of great organizations working with refugees. We're starting to work more and more with refugees because of that vulnerability, working with Malcolm Burley and Choco de Jesus as far as identifying really what's going on the border and trying to provide medical and a solid point of contact to alleviate as much of that vulnerability as we can. And then again, foster care and adoption, right? There's so many great networks across this country you can plug into. And if you shoot us a message or get a hold of Venture, I'm sure they can plug you into some of the groups they're working with and can vouch for as well. But I want you, in closing, just tell us tell everyone where they can find Venture and yourself, and make any last pitch you want. And then I'm going to go get some coffee.
Great. That sounds good. Hey, I'm thrilled to be on this. We've been friends for a lot of years. We're going to be friends for a lot longer. My prayer before I give the couple of things that you asked is that people that are listening would know that as important as life change for a young girl who's been trafficked is somebody who feels stuck, who's like, what's my cause? What's my purpose? And this can be part of that thing coming alongside of Free. And maybe that's for a season, and then you identify what's going on in your community or internationally. But this is what we get to do as brothers and sisters, come alongside of each other and go, man, you're created to make a difference. So you can go to venture.org is our site, but far more important is venturemiles.org, which is where you can find the Run for One challenge. And I'm sure that Mike's going to put up the actual challenge. We have an app, so we'll make it really easy where you can actually track the miles right from your phone. It goes right to the app. It pushes out social media because what we want is we want thousands of people moving at the same time. And if you're already making your excuses, please know I live in Minneapolis. I literally have icicles on my beard when I run in January, but it's an honor to run on behalf of these women. It's an honor to run on behalf of the Free International banner. So first of all, consider individually joining. And then secondly, as you find out more, consider maybe grabbing your family, your small group, introducing it to your pastor or to some community group. This thing can grow big, fast, and it can make a huge difference because you simply say, yeah, I think I'm going to do that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Paul. It's always great to jump on with you. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. I'm working at getting up into Minneapolis in the next month or two. And I actually got some emails today right from Minneapolis about looking at a big search in 2022. So I know we're going to be like old times back in the only much better than the old Super Bowl in Dallas, and hopefully not with an ice storm to boot. So
that's right.
Say hi to the team. Proud of you and your family, praying for you and your family as it continues to grow. Thanks for jumping on with us today.
You bet. Love you, amigo.
All right. Back at you. Love you.